Hey YouTube, it's Mike Peng Gangster, and today I wanted to make a video, kind of bit of a different video actually, because I know a lot of people are going to be actually surprised of me actually making this video. In the background, you're watching Nick Run the Foot Market reacting to Inception's video about he needs to rant about FC24. Now, I just took this particular video and put it in the background just for the heck of this video, so you guys could see what I'm talking about and stuff like that. But I know in the title it says that I don't agree and I never really liked Inception that much. So I know a lot of people are going to be like shocked basically that I am actually not a big fan of Inception. Okay. Now, I also understand that a lot of people are probably new to this. The community has changed a lot, and a lot of the people that used to know me and a lot of people that play or watch YouTube videos of FIFA today probably don't know who the fuck I am. And that's okay. Let me explain to you real quick where I was. So, a couple of years back, well, more than a couple of years back, a long time back, I was actually someone that actually basically created a chaos in the community of FIFA by actually changing the way people started talking about this game. I was probably one of the first ones to make a lot of noise of like basically calling out certain things in this game or cheaters or handicap or certain individuals. Now, when that happened, I was making a lot of noise and I felt like a lot of people did not want to interact with me because there was the unknown of what was going to happen if they got into a one versus me throughout the stuff that I was saying. And of course, there were also like people that were doing a lot of videos on FIFA. They had like basically like their number one priority financially was their YouTube channel. So they kind of had the unknown of like what was gonna happen if they actually you know basically started talking about EA Sports the way I did, right? Because they didn't want to get canceled, they didn't want to get their account banned, and so on. So I completely understand why certain people went their own way. Now, back in those days, Inception was probably one of the only ones that actually was calling out the game the way I was calling it out. Maybe not as raw I was, because I was really raw, and that's why I made a lot of noise, because I was really like being like vulgar and everything. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that part of the YouTube channel that I was running back in those days, because they liked the fact that everything was raw and everything was like like direct. And again, I felt like a lot of people were kind of like afraid to go that route because they didn't know the unknown, what was going to happen to their YouTube channel if they did that way, right? Which in my case, it was completely different because it was a new channel. I didn't care. I was just basically there. I was like, what? I'm going to make some noise. So I'm going to do whatever I got to do to make some noise. And I made a lot of noise back then. I made so much noise that when the matchmaking cheating allegation was happening, all that stuff, I was actually probably one of the reasons why EA actually ended up changing the matchmaking, all that stuff, because I was um, a lot like talking about it and basically pointing fingers at certain people that were basically part of it. Okay, so that's just if you guys want to know a little bit of a background where it was, because like I said, I do believe that a lot of the community has changed a lot from back then to today. Now, you're wondering like, okay, well, why don't you like Inception? Well, actually, I used to like him a lot back in the days because I felt like a lot of the stuff that he was saying, or at least the way he thought about the game and the way he was talking about the game, he was aligned with the way I thought, about the game and stuff like that. So I felt like, eventually we were going to collide and eventually we were going to be like most likely a force to change the game together. In a way, saying like not together, but like we would have, like eventually we would have like, um, like mention each other and stuff like that, which I had mentioned them a few times, and of course, yeah, kind of stayed away, like the reason why I said. Now, while that happened, he always talked about like him being the only reason um, that he calls out EA. He's the only guy. He's the only guy, and that's what made me starting to dislike him because he's always been that one guy that always talks about mechanics of the game and calls out EA and is like he make it seem like he's the only one that does this when I was doing this a long time ago, and a lot of the people were actually afraid to act this way because they didn't know what was going to happen. And eventually with my rant videos and stuff like that, a lot of the community of the YouTube actually started changing the way they started reacting towards EA, because they kind of like adapted to like not being as afraid as they were before talking shit about the game. At least from what I've experienced throughout the years, okay? Like they became more direct, okay? Anyways, I didn't like him, not because of what he said about the game stuff. Like, I actually do agree with a lot of the stuff that he says about the game. I don't think that everything he says about the game is completely correct. I do feel that it's good to be good at the game, but it doesn't particularly mean just because you're a good player, you know what's best for the game. But I do agree with some of the stuff that he says about the game that needs to change in certain ways that he says, but not fully. And I'm going to explain to you why, okay? Um, when we're going to talk about the FC24 also based on this, okay? Anyways, so as as I was calling out people like Nick Run the Foot Market was one of them, and of course other people, I felt like Inception was actually slowly aligning with these people, which I found extremely weird because back then, at least from my understanding, a lot of the people didn't like the fact that these guys weren't honest, and they were just basically making videos to basically grow their channel, and they would do whatever needed to be done to basically grow their channel. And as you can see today, when you look at a guy like Nick Run the Foot Market, for example, you could clearly see that his channel is opening a lot of packs, a lot of viewer packs, and stuff like that. And you're wondering like, what's wrong with that? Well, look, what's wrong with that is that it basically promotes packs, which when he was against packs, he does it more and more on every video. It kind of promotes packs. So these are kind of the people that kind of like basically the game follows, because they're the ones that have the monopoly of the community, which I don't agree with it. I don't agree that this game should be a gambling game and it should be all about packs. I think this game has a lot of stuff wrong with it, but I feel like people pumping these videos constantly are not helping the cause of this game. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that Inception does this. I'm just saying that a lot of the guys that he aligned himself with do these type of things, like Nepenthes, like AA Skills, and so on. There's some people that don't do it, but there's people that do it, like Bateson, that just constantly do it. Like there's people that actually believe Bateson spent like $500,000 in actually FIFA points, and he never spent $500,000 in FIFA points. A lot of the FIFA points that Bateson gets most likely is EA Sports giving it to him. Okay, if you actually believe that this guy actually put $500,000 of his own money in FIFA points, you're delusional. A lot of these FIFA points are actually given to him, so basically they could promote the game. It's not actually him putting these million coin, like it's like Castro. It's just a lot of these things people don't tell you because they don't. They look. A lot of these people in the community, they're not what you think they are. Okay, they're not the greatest people of all. Okay, that's let's just leave it at that. But the fact that Inception started to align with these people and started to always talk about certain scenarios of the game, complaining about the game like it was like if he's been the only one complaining about the game for throughout the years, I kind of started to like dislike him in a way of saying that I felt like this guy had a chance to actually align himself with certain people that were actually calling out the game, like he did with a few. For example, like he called out, for example, I mean, he aligned himself with Kurt at that point when all that stuff happened, and so on, right? So he aligned himself with a few people, but the thing is that he basically looked to basically align with himself that with the people that were basically popular in the industry, and that's it. So it's like no matter how good or bad these people were, as long as that they were big and they had a lot of influence and it was going to help grow his channel, he was going to basically align himself and become friends with them no matter what the cause, no matter what the case may be, right? So this is why I kind of like started to dislike him, because I kind of like didn't like the way he basically aligned himself with certain people that I felt that are actually the ones that are actually ruining the game. So yes, when people say like you think that guys like, you know, Run the Foot Market or the Pentis and stuff like that are actually in the ruin the game, I do feel like, yeah, I do feel like they're one of the cause of why the game is where it's at today, because I feel like instead of like fighting the battle, they just basically join whatever basically gets them views. Like I said, like the pack openings. And I feel like the reason why the game has become more of a casino, and instead of actually focusing on actually fixing what the problem really is in the game, if these guys weren't going to promote their pack opening as much as they did, maybe the EA would have realized that maybe it's better we start fixing the real issues of this game. And this is why I'm going to come into FC24. No matter what E tells you about mechanics of the game, there's only two things that you need to know that are the major problem of every FIFA game. And the number one is connection. The number two is handicap. And I will explain handicap for people that still don't believe in handicap. There are some people that believe, there are some that don't, and I will explain to you a little bit about RNG and how it works. But first, let's start off by connection. You cannot judge a game based on a trailer, okay? Because you haven't played it. And once you do play it, we're going to have the same problems over and over and over. And that is obvious. It's going to be connection, okay? Clearly, there's a big issue with the EA servers. So we can never really have a good gameplay because there are people that are going to benefit and there are people that are not going to benefit from based on where they're located. And this is a major issue of the game. This is the biggest issue of the game, is that it's not a fair game based on the fact that not everybody has the same connection advantage. So that's the number one thing you got to look at. So when you look at FC24, if you were already someone throughout the years of playing FIFA with bad connection advantages, what do you think is going to happen when you play FC24? The exact same thing. You're going to have bad connection and the game is going to feel like crap a lot of the times when you're playing it, especially when you're playing when you're playing, for example, foot champs or whatever the case may be, right? So that's the number one reason. The number two reason is handicap. I know a lot of people, again, like are kind of like not understanding of RNG itself, how it is, but you need to understand something about RNG. RNG is a random number generator. Random number generator is completely random. When you play FIFA, it is not random what's happening, because if it would be random, the variance would make sense. So like, what's variance? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say you and your friend, you're playing heads or tails. Your friend picks tails and you pick heads. And you decide to basically, I don't know, make a little wager between yourself. Like, okay, well, every time, heads pops, I win $10 and we'll do it 10 times. And, whoever wins ends up owing that amount of money to the person. So, for example, logically, heads or tails, it's a 50-50 chance of you either winning or losing. But because of variance, if you flip the coin 10 times, there's a possibility that heads will fall 7 times out of 10 or tails will fall 7 times out of 10 and somebody's going to win, because for the number to actually be a 50-50 chance, there has to be a lot of variance, a lot of basically flipping coins for it to actually even up. So why is variance very important in this particular thing I'm talking about handicap? Well, because if something would be random, okay, for example, if you're doing heads or tails, the odds of you hitting 9 heads over 10 when you're doing this is a small percentage of the chances. Will it happen? Yes. Okay. So like, well, if it would happen, well then why would it be called handicap? Well, the reason why it would be called handicap, because in a RNG, like I said, it is very rare that if you flip a coin 10 times, there's a possibility that heads will win 9 out of 10 times, because that is a small percentage that will happen. But when you're playing FIFA, if you ever notice, a lot of the times throughout the days, throughout the weeks, you go through games that are completely one-sided, which that means that 9 out of 10 times heads is actually falling quite often, which that would be completely impossible when it comes to like math. Like, for it to happen constantly every day, you would have to be playing millions of games for it to constantly be happening every day. So if you're playing 5 games a day and it's happening 1 out of every 5 games, that is not random. That would not be possible for it to be random, because it's quite happening too many times. You understand the difference here? So automatically, If that is happening too many times, it is not a random number generator that is happening. It is basically happening because EA is actually handicapping a particular opponent in a game. That's why sometimes when you play particular games, you feel like your opponent is winning all the 50-50s, or his goalie is making all the saves, your guys are missing all their shots, you're getting intercepted all the balls. Like, that is impossible for it to be random when it's happening very often on daily basis. You understand what I mean? So those are the two reasons why FC24 will be exactly the same like any other FIFA. And this is why I'm not agreeing with what, for example, everything Inception says. And again, like I said, I know a lot of people are probably like a bit surprised that I'm saying that I've never really liked them that much. Again, I'm not saying that I dislike him, like I hate the guy. I just don't like the way basically the way he chose to basically choose his path. I felt that a guy that was actually had a big voice in the community, I thought maybe he was not going to align himself with certain people that I feel that are actually the reason why the game is where it is today, and that is a gambling game. Unfortunate, FC24 is going to be the exact same thing. So, if people want to leave comments of agreeing or disagreeing with me, go ahead. I don't mind when people come at me. I know when I make videos like this, as you can see, I didn't speak out very, very bad in the video. I didn't use my older tactics that I was using when I made some noise. I went pretty polite, and I went with a, like, a very straightforward video for people to understand where I'm coming from and why I believe that a lot of the stuff that, for example, Inception is saying about FC24, I don't think it's really going to matter until the game comes out and you guys are going to basically encounter the exact same problems that you had in every other FIFA. And again, when you're aligning yourself with the people that are not actually making changes in the game, there will not be no changes in the game that are going to happen because these guys do not want to basically fight against EA to actually stop the pack opening and actually point out the real problems every day. If these people would actually stop their channels from showing any pack opening, it would take a major hit on EA, and I'll guarantee you that that hit would actually change the way they would have to approach the game and how they have to fix the game. Because the number one thing that people should do in their videos, especially these influencers, is every day, always mention how bad the connection is and how bad the handicap is in this game for to actually like show some difference of how they're approaching their channel and how they're basically promoting the game. Because right now, as much as they want to talk bad about the game or stuff like that, a lot of their promotion of their videos is pack openings. Now, I'm not saying that Inception shows pack openings here. I'm saying that the people that he's aligned with, a lot of these guys, a lot of their videos are just pack openings and pack openings and pack openings. And once a blue moon, they make a rant video. I don't think it's enough. I think they're not they're not making enough change. I don't feel like they're not influencing the people around them as they could because they have a big voice. A guy like Nick Run the Footmark has a huge voice in this community, and for him like to stop showing pack openings can make a big difference. Just one of these big guys actually stops like basically sharing people's pack openings, already there's a big difference in the community automatically because these guys have a big voice. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think. I just felt like I had to give my 2 cents of what I believe FC24 is and what's going to happen and so on. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day. Bye bye.